So I've been debating whether I wanted to make this video or not for a few days now, if I'm making too big of a deal out of it, if anyone would care, and I understand that it could make this company mad. But I think it's important to discuss something that I received from an AIB partner in regards to a 5060 Ti review. And I think it will give you some insight into how at least some companies think about reviews and how it can help you make more informed decisions. So as many of you likely know by now, the 5060 Ti doesn't come with the Founders Edition card, which means we have to go directly to AIB partners for review units. But I got a really concerning response from one partner that made me want to discuss this. And I want to preface everything by saying that I don't think I deserve a review unit, I don't think I'm owed one. If I would have never gotten a response back like this, or just no response at all, I would have been completely fine. But they didn't. Instead, they sent me this. And right away, you'll notice that I took everything out that's specific to the company. And that's just because I think it's more important to teach you rather than call out a company or individual directly. Either way, here is the response I got back from one board partner. As you can see, it says this: "We are in the process of shipping out our launch samples and may be able to support your request. I am looping in this person who I have handling this launch, and he can follow up to confirm if we can allocate support." Then he goes on to say, question: "Why the consistent focus on gen-on-gen comparison? In your most recent reviews, your focus on generation upgrades when most gamers do not upgrade gen-on-gen, 4070 to 5070 for instance. There is also comparison to cards that do not exist in the market, such as 40 series cards, which are EOL. So while data/performance can be compared, they are not market available options, so the consumer cannot readily pick a 4070 model, for instance, versus," it says 4070 here, but I'm assuming he means 5070 model. "This is similarly the case for 60 series as well, i.e., 5060 Ti. He goes on to state, "It is much more common to upgrade after 2 to 4 generations. Also, you do not focus on AIB cards, so in respect asking about the review, would there be any focus on the supplemental design elements of our card, or you focusing purely on the 5060 Ti GPU performance alongside supporting tech, DLSS, etc. Now, that last part is obviously just about giving a focus on their particular GPU's unique design elements, which is completely fine. I fully get that. Now, I am pretty sure that I did do that in my reviews, but I think he may have only looked at ones where I went over a Founders Edition card. Either way, I have no issue with that. It's this stuff up here that is not okay. And you might have noticed right when I said it, they have a problem with me comparing their new GPU to the GPU that it replaces. And what's wild is that one reason they give is because the 40 series cards are in end-of-life status, and you can't buy them. Yet, you can go on Newegg right now and pick up a 4070. Sure, the price is absurd, but the price is kind of absurd everywhere. But in fact, the 4060, which he's also referring to, is currently the top-selling GPU on Newegg. So this is absurd reasoning. But it gets even worse because he then says that I should instead compare it to older GPUs, yet those have been end of life for even longer and are way harder to find. Now, he claims that another reason is because most people buy from an older generation, and I have no doubt that's true, but let's be honest here. If the 50 series cards had a huge performance jump over last gen, they'd be completely happy for me to compare it to the 40 series. I mean, the idea that they would frown upon comparing their new GPU to the card it's literally made to replace is completely absurd. Not to mention the fact that it tells you whether you should get a last gen GPU or a current gen one, since, like I already pointed out, those are still available. But the obvious explanation is that many of the 50 cards are a joke when it comes to gen-on-gen performance. And ironically, in that video he references, I only compared the 5070 to the 4070 Ti, and that's because it's the only comparable NVIDIA card I had. For example, I didn't have a 4080 with my 5080 review, which is why I only compared it to AMD's 7900 XTX. And I got a ton of flack for not comparing it to the 4080 at that time, but that's ultimately the reason why. Still, it's because of my past reviews that I received this email. So, what does all of this mean? Well, for one, it's a company clearly trying to push me to do reviews differently to make their product look better. I mean, to think that I wouldn't compare it to last gen is wild. And sure, they likely mean the focus on last gen, but it's literally made to replace that card. It's just absurd. And I, of course, said so in my response, to which they didn't respond until I asked again about the review. And I was told that they don't have any inventory, yet when I got the first email, it seemed pretty clear that they had stock. Now, don't get me wrong. The one with the answer was the person who he CC'd, and maybe they really didn't have inventory, though it definitely doesn't look good. Regardless, this causes a major issue for reviewers. Specifically for smaller creators. I mean, obviously, the huge channels will likely get cards no matter what because the exposure is enough to justify even the worst of reviews. But companies are able to pick and choose the smaller creators that they prefer based on their past reviews, which means that they can manipulate how their products are reviewed. And that's if they're not outright trying to dictate how the review is done, like the one who sent me this email. See, they could have just sent nothing and then not sent the card, and they would have gotten the exact same result that they wanted. So I'll at least say it's good that they were honest. Maybe they thought I was big enough that it was worth a try. I'm not sure, but who knows who else they're sending this to, trying to influence how reviewers do their reviews. And of course, I'm not at all calling out reviewers or anything like that. I have no clue if anyone got something like this, but what's so nefarious is that they can do this without the creator even knowing. If they meet a certain criteria in how they do their reviews, they'll send them a copy. But if not, then they just won't respond. And we know that at least one AIB partner is at least going through channels just like that. And we actually saw something similar with Hardware in Box from Nvidia, all because they weren't putting enough of a focus on ray tracing. Luckily, they pushed back against the company. Now, don't get me wrong, I've worked with many AIB partners, and this is the first one to say anything like this. So don't at all think this is everyone, and it's obviously impossible to fix. I mean, we can't force companies to send their product to everyone who calls themselves a reviewer, which is why I said that this is more of a lesson for those watching reviews. Make sure to watch multiple reviewers to get a more broad perspective. If someone is giving a positive review on something, try to find a negative one and vice versa. And more importantly, keep a skeptical mind.